everyone, it's been a while, so I thought I would post another one of these little video tutorials. I want to talk about high arousal in multi-dog families because a lot of us have one or more dogs that struggles with really high arousal, mostly because a lot of us do sports that have lots of dogs, and it can create a pretty unique challenge to living with all of these dogs together. So there's a couple of things that are really, really important, and I've talked about this a lot lately with clients. The number one thing is to not kind of live with your dog in this high adrenaline state. So sometimes when we have dogs that people call high drive or high energy, what they do is they end up thinking that they need to do lots of activities with the dog every day, or all the dogs every day, and they run around from class to class to class or activity to whatever. They're always on the go with their dogs, feeling like they have to fill this need for this dog or multiple dogs that are kind of relentless to live with, or they think they are. So what happens is we do sports like agility or disc dog, or let's say lure coursing, anything that's kind of like high arousal, where your dog is getting really, really excited and they're putting a lot of physical energy out there. So for different dogs, different sports can be that way too. Like there are dogs who will do nose work and they will get into that state as just the same as if they were doing agility. So that's what I'm talking about specifically, these dogs that get really, really high. And the other thing we do with these dogs, other than just jumping from activity to activity, is these owners tend to do a lot of fetch. So ball or frisbee, to just burn off energy again, right? Like we want a tired dog. Or they'll do a lot of off-leash running with like their whole crew. So the dogs are not like necessarily on a walk where they're relaxed or they're sniffing, but they're running hard, they're playing hard, they're very excited. So they're in this state all the time. So what happens with dogs when they're kind of in this frantic state, and it's all done by well-meaning people who just want to exercise their dogs properly and tire out their brains, is we're creating this adrenaline rush. And because we're doing that, their system is staying high all the time, because it can take days for that to come down. So when we're looking at having a peaceful household with lots of dogs, or even just one dog, like this applies if you only have one dog, we're never teaching them how to come down or how to be calm or how to just kind of be. It's always like filling this gap. So one of the things that I think is really important to remember is, even though you may have some pretty high energy working dogs, is that they should not be doing these activities every day. And in fact, they shouldn't be doing them every other day. You need gaps in between so that the dog has a chance to calm down and kind of just be. And you can talk to different people with different kinds of dogs and they'll have different philosophy, but I'll tell you, I've had a lot of breeds and this is really, really important. There will be days that you should do nothing with the dogs. And it sounds harsh, but like, you have to train and give your dogs a break, but you also have to prepare them for, say there's a day you get really sick and you can't go out, or you're having surgery and you're not going to be able to walk your dogs for a few days or whatnot, right? Like they have to know how to just be and how to be calm, but they also need it for their own well-being, where there's days where you might not do anything. So what I recommend for most people, and again, no one has a one-size-fits-all solution, but I only do high arousal activities twice a week, tops. So that's disc or agility. I don't play those games every day. Now, if your dog can do those activities and be really calm and chill, this might not apply to them, but it's something to think about. Also, when we're talking about like hiking and off-leash activities, I do those a lot. They're great for physical fitness, but for one of my dogs, pack running is really adrenaline inducing. So again, it's going to count in her how many high intensity activities I do with her in a week. So what we do on the other side of things, because I still want to work them, is we'll do rally practice, or we'll do some trick training, or recently started doing some scent detection practice, and they're finding things and they're doing those things. And then there's usually at least one day a week where we do nothing. So we don't go out into the world, we don't go do activities, we don't do training at home. We are just a family sitting on the couch, cuddling. Sometimes I'll buy them bones or chews or something like that to have, but those are our off days. And it's really, really important they have off days, because sometimes I'm not feeling good, or my life has gone really hectic and something has happened and they need to have an off day, and they might need to have more than one off day in a row. So they have to be prepared to do that. The other thing that's really cool is when they have this schedule where they go between high arousal and calm, and then on a day off. The next time I go to do that high arousal activity, the dog is not usually as heightened to do that activity. And it sounds crazy, because the first time I heard this information, they'd done research on reactive dogs. And the recommendation after the research was that you actually don't walk your reactive dog for at least a week. Sometimes 10 days, 2 weeks, just to give their nervous system a chance to calm down. And then when you start walking them again, it'll be easier. And when I had clients attempt this, they were very scared. They're like, oh, I've got this dog, he's not gonna know what to do, we're just suddenly not gonna go walk him. And they thought it was gonna be this awful thing where the dog was gonna drive them crazy. And the first day or two, for some of them, was hard, but for many of them, there was no cons. The dog was instantly more relaxed and stayed relaxed. So when we're looking at sports and keeping our dogs busy all the time, we need to keep that in mind too. So we have to teach the dogs how to calm down and how to relax and how to just be. And it can't be all this extra all the time. So when you're looking at the schedule of your dogs and you're living with a dog that seems demanding or intense or high energy, I want you to think about how you can make their schedule so you're not just kind of trying to burn energy the easiest way possible, or you're not just filling their plate with activities all the time so you're overloading their brains, but you're actually giving them, one, time to be dogs, and two, time to be relaxed dogs, not doing all the things. And this again is really important too. Like if you're trialing a lot and you're at dog shows, which are long days of stress, like even if your dog crates lovely, it's still stressful. It's not the same as being at home. Those days after your trial should be serious decompression days. And for some dogs, like a long quiet walk where no one's around will be decompressing. I have a dog who finds that really stimulating and it puts her up high. So that's not decompression for her. You have to look at all your dogs individually and kind of see what is actually going to benefit that individual dog. So if I have two dogs where a long walk the day after a trial is going to actually be good for them, I might take them. But I'm not going to take that dog that's going to find it also arousing, because now she's in a state where she's 3 days deep into a lot of stress and her system's not calming down. So it's really, really important when you have lots of dogs to take a look at that. And those needs and that schedule need to be reevaluated regularly, because as our dogs age, things will change for them. And different things will be arousing, increasing, and different things will be stressful. And sometimes things will not be at all. So my senior boy, when he was 12, his last year of competing, he could go to a dog show and it wasn't stressful or arousing for him. And he didn't run much. I didn't run him very much. So if we were there, he wasn't doing like a full day of runs. But his Monday was not a big deal, because even though he was there and it was a lot, he was sleeping while he was there, because he could actually conk out at that point. He'd been doing dog shows his whole life. So for that dog, his needs were entirely different than my younger dogs. And it's really important to kind of evaluate that for each dog specifically. Some dogs, as they get older and you're doing sports with them, may actually find trials more and more stressful and harder to deal with. So then those Mondays, the Tuesdays, the days after your trial, they might need more decompression, even though they're the older dog who's been doing it a long time. So you want to look at each dog in your group individually, figure out what they need, and then play with your schedule and see how they're reacting to it. The other thing that's important to consider is if you have intact dogs, specifically female dogs, their heat cycles are going to dramatically impact their energy levels and their arousal levels and their coping abilities. So when my dogs are in and around in a heat cycle, I'm tweaking their schedule quite a bit and trying to determine if I'm pushing them too hard, if they need more downtime, if they need different activities during that time, because these are all things that if we don't manage properly can lead to dog fights and issues in the household. It can also lead to an increase in general anxiety behavior. So you might see more sound sensitivity, and we can also see things from dogs that are kind of just agitation. So some pacing, inability to settle down. And we want to avoid having dogs that are sensitized to these things, especially when we're living with lots of them together. And that also means if one of our dogs is struggling or having a hard time and they're getting high, it can impact all the rest of your dogs and their coping skills too. And that is the tricky part about having lots of dogs. And the more we have, the more one individual can cause kind of chaos in the group. So I track heat cycles really, really closely. I have 5 intact females right now, and sometimes their schedule isn't as predicted. Fable came into heat 3 months early, brought Navy in, so everyone's on this weird rolling cycle, and it impacts our trial schedules and our training schedules. Even though they can compete while they're in heat, the amount of runs they do and my training leading up to events and what I do after events will change when I've identified that they've started a heat cycle. I know some people don't like to deal with that, so they spay their girls, but again, dogs, depending on the season, how they're feeling, if they have allergies, all these things matter too. So even though you can kind of ignore the hormonal side a little bit more, there's lots of factors to consider. So just take a look at your schedule. Make sure you're not playing a lot of high arousal activities, that you're keeping your dog super high all the time, and think about things that you can do instead. And that's something we can chat about in our group, is we can talk about all the ways we can have fun with our dogs without increasing arousal. Hope you have a great day.